Today is also the anniversary of the Wounded Knee Massacre, and I'm going to share that with you as well. December 29th, 1890, there was a massacre of Sioux warriors, women, and children along Wounded Knee Creek in southwestern South Dakota, which was the end of a long chapter of war between the United States and the Great Plains Native American tribes, those communities and those human beings indigenous to the Great Plains. And this horrible massacre, at one point it was called like the Wounded Knee War, the Wounded Knee Battle, but let's be clear about this. This was a massacre. This is something that we are now marking today. What is it, 125 years later? This massacre in South Dakota. So I'm going to read you a bit of history. This is coming from history.com. For the entirety of his 27 years, Black Elk's somber eyes had watched as the way of life for his fellow Lakota Sioux withered on the Great Plains. The medicine man had witnessed a generation of broken treaties and shattered dreams. He had watched as the white man came in like a river after gold was discovered in the Dakotas Territory, Black Hills, in 1874, and he had been there 2 years later when Custer and his men were annihilated at Little Bighorn. He had seen the Lakota's traditional hunting grounds evaporate as white man decimated the native buffalo population. The Lakota, who once roamed as free as the bison on the Great Plains, were now mostly confined to government reservations. And it goes on to describe just the changing conditions of the Sioux, and the weather, was pretty bad in the winter of South Dakota of 1890. And there was a revival of what is known as the ghost dance movement, which is interesting to me personally because here in Houston there's some in the indigenous native activist communities who are looking to bring back the ghost dance now and keep these traditions alive. So that's something that's really powerful to see. And this is really where it started, but it scared the shit out of the white man, and they sent in troops basically to try to shut down these wild Indians. One telegram from a government agent on South Dakota's Pine Ridge Reservation to the Indian Affairs Bureau on November 15th, 1890 said, "The Indians are dancing in the snow and are wild and crazy. We need protection, and we need it now." General Nelson Miles arrived on the prairie with 5,000 troops as part of the 7th Cavalry, Custer's old command, and ordered the arrest of several Sioux leaders. When on December 15th, 1890, Indian police tried to arrest Chief Sitting Bull, who was mistakenly believed to have been joining the ghost dancers, the noted Sioux leader was killed in the melee. On December 28th, the cavalry caught up with Chief Bigfoot, who was leading a band of upwards of 350 people to join Chief Red Cloud near the banks of Wounded Knee Creek, which winds through the prairies and badlands of southwest South Dakota. The American forces arrested Bigfoot, too ill with pneumonia to sit up, let alone walk, and positioned their guns on a rise overlooking the Lakota camp. As a bugle blared the following morning, December 29th, 125 years ago today, American soldiers mounted their horses and surrounded the Native American camp. A medicine man who started to perform the ghost dance cried out, "Do not fear, but let your hearts be strong. Many soldiers are about us and have many bullets, but I am assured their bullets cannot penetrate us." He implored the heavens to scatter the soldiers like the dust he threw into the air. The cavalry, however, went teepee to teepee, seizing axes, rifles, and other weapons. As the soldiers attempted to confiscate a weapon, they spotted under the blanket of a deaf man who could not hear their orders. A gunshot suddenly rang out. It was not clear which side shot first, but within seconds, the American soldiers launched a hail of bullets from rifles, revolvers, and rapid-fire Hotchkiss guns into the teepees. Outnumbered and outgunned, the Lakota offered meek resistance. Bigfoot was shot where he lay on the ground. Boys who only moments before were playing leapfrog were mowed down. In just a matter, at least 150 Sioux, some historians put the number as twice as high, were killed along with 25 American soldiers. Nearly half the victims were women and children. And the Black Elk that they're referencing here is, of course, from John G. Neihart's 1932 book, Black Elk Speaks, which I was given a couple years ago, and I'd never heard of it, and I absolutely recommend if you want a good account of Native history and some of the events that took place around that time period, check out Black Elk Speaks. And another piece I want to read here related to this. For decades, the Wounded Knee Massacre was masqueraded as a battle and marked in many American history books as such. A few months following the massacre, the United States government awarded 20 troops of the U.S. 7th Cavalry with the Medal of Honor, and to this day, those medals have not yet been rescinded. Nearly a century following the massacre, history books finally acknowledged that what occurred at Wounded Knee was not a battle but an all-out massacre. Now, this is interesting. In 1990, Virgil Kilstraight of Lakota led the first Chief Bigfoot Memorial Ride after receiving a dream. The Bigfoot Ride was to retrace the steps of Chief Bigfoot and his band to Wounded Knee Creek, beginning on December 23rd in Bridger, South Dakota, and ending at the Wounded Knee grave site on the memorial of the massacre on December 29th. The original ride began with 19 horseback riders, and many among the communities of riders say the ride brought healing while also bringing horses back to the people in a new way. So they've had over 200 horseback riders participate, and this year is the 25th anniversary of their ride that they started in 1990, the 100-year anniversary of the massacre. And now they will be having another one that says, while many different groups remember the Wounded Knee Massacre through an array of interrelated events, the Dakota 38+2 Memorial Ride in Minnesota overlaps 4 days of the Bigfoot Ride. The 38+2 ride is in honor of the 38+2 Dakota who were hanged in the largest mass execution in United States history following the Dakota conflict of 1862. Many riders of the Dakota 38+2 Memorial Ride later joined the Bigfoot Ride in solidarity to honor ancestors and in efforts to continue the healing process. Here's another piece from the Healing Hearts. For the past 25 years, Native American people have been riding and running and walking the route that Chief Bigfoot followed with his people before they were massacred at the site of Wounded Knee in Pine Ridge, South Dakota. This year, to honor the 25th anniversary of the Chief Bigfoot Band Memorial Ride and the 125th anniversary of the massacre, we inaugurate a 4-year cycle for global ceremony to end massacre and all that massacre means and to finally heal our hearts. And one last little piece that I'd like to read to you here. One of the survivors, a Lakota woman, was treated by the Indian physician Dr. Charles Eastman at a makeshift hospital set up in a church in the village of Pine Ridge. Before she died of her wound, she told about how she had concealed herself in a clump of bushes. As she hid there, she saw 2 terrified little girls running past. She grabbed them and pulled them into the bushes. She put her hands over their mouths to keep them quiet, but a mountain soldier spotted them. He fired a bullet into the head of one girl and then calmly reloaded his rifle and fired into the head of the other girl, and then fired into the body of the Lakota woman. She feigned death and, although badly wounded, lived long enough to relate her terrible ordeal to Dr. Eastman. As the shooting subsided, units of the 7th Cavalry rode off toward White Clay Creek near Pine Ridge Village on a search and destroy mission. When they rode onto the grounds of the Holy Rosary Indian Mission, my grandmother Sophie and the other Lakota children fed and watered their horses according to a brochure published by the mission school. My grandmother never forgot that terrible day, and she often talked about how the soldiers were laughing and bragging about their great victory. So, today, I honor the souls, the lives of those lost 125 years ago, both the American soldiers and the American Indians, the Lakota, and everyone who suffered at Wounded Knee and who continues to suffer in the memory of these things. And also, I stand in solidarity with those who are going on this Chief Bigfoot Memorial Ride and continuing the process of healing and bringing not only awareness to this topic, which many people aren't aware of because you more than likely aren't taught this in your history books, but it's still important for us to remember and to talk about and reflect upon. So thank you guys, and please take some time to learn about this and to share it with other people. Peace.